Good morning and welcome to Anju Asks. Today we're talking about raising children between cultures. If you're an expat, you're a parent, chances are you're raising a third culture kid, and it's a big topic. How do you prepare those children for the shifting sands, the changing times that we're living through today? I'm here to speak with Miss Melissa from GIIS. Thank you for being with us today.
My pleasure, Anju. Lovely to be here.
So let's get into it. Miss Melissa, what does it mean to truly educate a young person for the world that they're actually going to live in?
Well, that's a fantastic question, Anju. When I think of educating a young person, for a world that they are actually going to live in, I think it's about preparing them for uncertainty. We all know that the world is moving so fast, it's digital, and it's constantly evolving. But I think it also deeply needs kindness and integrity. So for me, education must develop competence and character. It must help students to rise with respect, integrity, skills, and most importantly, empathy.
Yes, those are very important and very difficult to teach. They're so intangible. How do you pass on those values to your students?
Well, when we talk about values, it's more about practicing them, giving opportunities to practice. And I so vividly remember, a student of ours who we had a spell-well competition, and this child stood up and told the teacher, "You've erred and the opponent is missing a point." Well, it was at the cost of defeat for him, for his team, but he still stood up. And for me, that's a huge trophy for, integrity and empathy for his fellow participant. Likewise, I still remember a collaborative project that was going on for science, and there was this girl who was not able to cope with what was happening. So a friend of hers changed the entire project so that she could understand. So this is, being inclusive, and this is absolute sign of empathy. So to answer your question, it is giving children time and platforms to practice these values, and that's how we embed it for them.
Doing the right thing. It's so important, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Our children are so savvy. Often they're in situations when they can see that action needs to be taken, but it can be difficult to nudge them into doing that right thing. So how do you foster that?
Well, I can say that, yes, every time a child is seeing a problem, but when he stands up to take action, that is something that is absolutely incredible to see. I know our children in the maker space, they are thinking of those who are having difficulties. So we had a young team who has actually worked on an app that is taking care of the elderly, detecting falls. There's another group that is, created games for the physically and the learning challenged students, just to make it inclusive. We have another group you will not believe, these are a set of senior children who are working with the less fortunate children in India, teaching them numeracy and literacy skills. And thereby, this is the way these children are seeing what is required and making sure that we are having action taken.
They're really walking the talk and becoming responsible members of their community.
Absolutely.
That's really commendable. Yeah, wonderful. So I guess that leads on to my next question. We're raising these children as citizens of a global world, if you like, global communities. And it's difficult to know at the end of that process, that lengthy education, what that end product will be. So what kind of students are you hoping will walk out of the gates at GIIS at the end of their time here?
Wow, again, such a huge question,
Yes.
right, for educators like us. But when I think about it, I feel when a young child or young adult walks out of the gates of our school, I'm looking at a vanguard generation, and what I mean by that is students who are at the forefront of change, leading with purpose and heart. You know, I want students, they notice in the community that there are gaps and they stand up to take action. They come forward to take action and genuinely make a difference. What is also more inspiring for me is, you know, when our alumni come back. They come back to the alma mater to tell them that, hey, you know, I learned this in school and I've taken this forward. You know, I have taken lessons that I have learned. I have students who are deep into research, looking for cures, you know, into aggressive cancers. They're finding things to do. I have other students who will come back and say, hey, our juniors must not go through the same we went through. So we are working out on something. So for me, a vanguard student is something that this generation needs, who is willing to tie up communities together, come to the front and take action for wherever there is a gap. Not just use his or her learning, you know, stored somewhere there and not make use of it. My students who walk out must be able to make this change and, you know, have some lasting impact, leave a legacy. I love that if they can do it.
I agree. I think it's just generally a great principle to leave things a little better than when you found them, right? To try and build and improve on things around you. So I totally agree with what you're saying. I guess the way that you can really do that is if you're operating from a good baseline,
Yes.
right? So we talk a lot about well-being in schools, and how do you maintain and ensure that the children are operating from a good baseline in terms of well-being?
Well, once again, a fantastic question, Anju. You know, I've always believed that children truly need to be happy when they come to school, because that's when real learning happens. And therefore, you know, I always work towards creating an environment that is joyful, happy, because that's a personal belief I have that a happy classroom is a productive classroom, and more happier classes is a productive school, a school that thrives for all its stakeholders, and well-being is at the center. You know, and for that reason, we are very, very intentionally working towards the happiness hub, wherein we want to ensure that each child who comes to our school experiences the joy of learning, you know, is curious about learning, is exploring, gets an opportunity to do things outside of the classroom. So yes, very intentional way of crafting out things, and to also make it demonstrable at the end of the, you know, month perhaps, celebrating this, celebrating it visually, for everyone to see. Yeah, so I think the foundation is on being joyful, and that leads to well-being.
Couldn't agree more. I think schools are a microcosm of life outside, adult life, if you will, and I think it's really important to follow what makes you happy and what you're curious about. You follow your natural passions. So it's great to see that you're using that as a foundation for your students here at GIIS. Yeah, I've learned a lot this morning. Thank you so much for your time.
It's my pleasure, Anju, and thank you for giving this opportunity to share what we are doing and what I strongly believe in. Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure.